Welcome to this video podcast from the studios in the European Parliament. I have a very special guest today in the European Parliament visiting from Paris. It's Shannon Seban. She is holding an elected mandate on the local level close to Paris, and she has been very active on the European level in many different regards for many years. She also serves as a director of the European movement against antisemitism. Exactly, it's the Combat Antisemitism movement of Europe, and that's why we work together. Shannon Seban has visited Vienna, the capital of my home country, Austria, earlier this year, and today in the European Parliament we have plenty of talks, of activities fighting antisemitism, and unfortunately increasingly important topic since antisemitism has been rising all over Europe. But let's start with the main purpose of your visit, Shannon. Thanks for visiting the European Parliament again, of course, for being in Brussels. What's the main purpose of your visit?
So first of all, I would like to start by thanking you, Lukas, for the wonderful work you are doing. And I know that we have been now partnering for more than 1 year. And I must admit that it's always a pleasure to see you and to see how committed you are in order to fight antisemitism, extremism, and any kind of hatred and discrimination. So I just would like to remind also those who are listening to us your commitment. And sincere commitment. So thanks a lot for that. So today, as you told it, I am in Brussels in order to meet some elected officials. So I have some institutional meetings, but also political meetings with actors who are fighting antisemitism, but also any kind of hatred, racism and discrimination in Europe, of course, but also all across the world. So today I will also have a conference at the European Parliament where we are standing right now in order to tackle the important issue and crucial issue of fighting Islamism, extremism and radicalization, especially among young leaders around Europe.
It's so important also to distinguish between Islam as a religion and Islamism as an extremist ideology. As we have known all over history, extremist ideology is being extremely harmful for everybody. As I always claim, Islamism, extremism of Islamic terrorism, of political Islam, as it is also called, in the first place is threatening Islam as a religion. But also, of course, our societies in their entirety. This is why it's so important to distinguish. Yeah. That's why your work is so important, Shannon, at the conference of today. And it's all connected, of course, also to the issue of rising anti-Semitism all over Europe. There have been more and more incidents in Austria, in my home country, also in France, in your country, all over Europe, unfortunately. And this is very concerning. How can we tackle that? I know, Shannon, you always talk about education and justice as the main pillars. Can you go a bit deeper into that?
Sure, absolutely. I think that in our society today, where we can see that we can have a radicalization of political stance, whether it is on the far right or the far left, we do have a huge role to play in order to educate future generation. And what I can see, especially in the place where I am elected, in Rosny-sous-Bois, where more than 40% of the population is aged less than 25 years old, is that we do have a lot of cliché and stereotypes that are embedded in youth mind. And I think that our goal as elected officials is also to tell at some point that we need to educate this young generation in order to tell them that there are no differences between Jewish, Christian, Muslim people. We are all brother and sister at the end. And so this is like on the first pillar about education. And I do think that this is like our first line of defense in order to fight antisemitism, racism, and hatred, and any kind of xenophobia, homophobia, and so on. And as you mentioned it, the second line of defense is about justice. And we need to adapt our legal platform, our legal system, to be able to tackle and to punish the new form of hatred. Let's take an example. I'm deeply convinced, and I can see it also on the ground as an elected official, that anti-Zionism at some point, it's the red line in order to move through antisemitism. When you deny the very right to people to have their own homeland, that means that you deny them the right to exist. you deny their very rights. So that means that this is, to me, anti-Semitism. So we need to have a legal system which is more rigorous, more strict, more firm, and more serious at the end. So education, justice are, to me, both platforms we need to act on.
Absolutely. Thanks for this clear statement. We have talked for many years about the different forms of anti-Semitism that have been appearing already long before October 7, 2023. My impression is that they're not more anti-Semites as before, but they feel more entitled now to release their hatred and their negative emotion. And I'm still convinced that the vast majority of people in Austria, in Europe, in France, everywhere, is not anti-Semitic, but they should not remain silent. This is my approach, as a good friend of mine always claims when he was young and active in civil society, and there were working groups created against anti-Semitism. My friend is Jewish. Then people would have said to him, and they meant it not negatively, they would have said to him, this is a working group against anti-Semitism, so you will take care of it because you are Jewish. And he always said, no, it's an issue for everybody, not only for Jewish people. And this is an important message to share, I would say. And what I highly, highly appreciate, Shannon, you're openly Jewish. You have just released a book named French Jewish So What? I think that's the name of the book, isn't it? I hope it will be available in English soon.
I hope so.
I don't even dare to wish for it in German, but it would also be nice to have it. So, and I really highly, highly appreciate that you, from the very beginning, have taken up the fight not only against anti-Semitism, but against discrimination of all kinds, racism and extremism of hatred in various directions. And this is what harms our society so much, and this is what we can change due to education, as you have said, a proper justice system that really sanctions these crimes of hatred, and they are really crimes, and they don't have anything to do with freedom of speech, because freedom of speech, as I always claim, is also the freedom to speak for the not so loud voices and for the more reflective voices, not only for the most extreme voices and maybe the voices full of hatred. And this is what you fight. But somebody in our talks today asked you what triggers your hope. So what does trigger your hope for our societies, for fighting anti-Semitism, for a proper future?
What brings me hope at some point, and you are right about tackling this issue, and you know this also as you are a member of the European Parliament, it's not every day easy. And we should also tell to those who are listening to us today that it's a fight on a daily basis, which is difficult to lead. But what brings me hope is to build bridges between communities. And I'm pretty convinced that interfaith dialogue is one of the most powerful tools that we can have in order to make things change and in order to change mindset. So building bridges between communities. And the second topics I would like to address, since we are now in the European Parliament, where all the policies are made also at the heart of Europe, there is a text, the Digital Services Act. And I think that we don't speak enough about this text that also give the responsibilities to platforms and online platforms to control, to prevent, and to punish the propagation and the sharing of hate content online. And I'm pretty convinced today that we have, of course, to work on education. We have to work on improving our legal system in order to punish anti-Semitism and any kind of racism and discrimination. But what we can see now is the creation and the fact that some political parties even would like to nurture hatred online. And with the passivity and the silence at some point of some digital platforms. And this European text, the Digital Services Act, must be applied. And I'm pretty convinced that the European Commission must be even more stronger when it comes to punish this platform online. When they do not respect their agreement in order to remove hatred content online, they must be punished. It's a common fight that needs to be shared with everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for supporting the Digital Services Act, because it's again about freedom of speech, as I have mentioned before, and it's also about holding up a society where everybody can talk to everybody, which is not the case anymore. I can say for myself at least, I have adapted my opinion a bit. For example, about a clear threshold, minimum age of young people on social media, because obviously on the one side it's highly addictive. Young people can easier, due to their development as not yet adults, get addicted to social media tools, and social media is a gateway of hatred, a gateway of extremism, a gateway of really harmful and I would say sick ideologies. And we know not everybody on earth likes our European civilization. Yeah. It's rather the case that we would be attacked from other sides. Unfortunately, we keep our hand outreached, I would say, for cooperation on this planet if it's reliable and with reciprocity, but others seek for confrontation, and this is part of it. Hatred on social media channels, and this is why the Digital Service Act is important, and this is why this is also something I think today more than ever, personal encounter is so important, to talk to each other personally. And this is why I think you're also traveling around within France with your book, no? So you're speaking to people, of course, very often online, in studios and in podcasts and wherever, but also personally. Is that right? And what is your experience with these personal encounters, human to human? Isn't it different than when it's only online?
Definitely. Definitely, you can definitely that, for example, hate online now is a nightmare because it's like you don't have a specific name behind this. You know what I mean? It's always easier to be very mean with someone when it's online without your specific name and so on. And I have experienced this many times. I just would like to recall to those who are listening to us that 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, to be fully honest, before October 7, 2023, which marked a milestone in the antisemitism incidents, I have been attacked online by a neo-Nazi activist who has decided to escape his responsibility in Japan because he has been condemned more than 20 times. And his goal is only to share hate online and to be very mean. And let's be polite, to be very mean towards people, whether they are Jewish, Muslims, Christian. And it's absolutely a nightmare because his website is closing on Monday, he will reopen on Tuesday. And it will go like that many times and as needed and so on. And because he is in Japan and because we do not have any agreement with this country, any like legal agreement with this country, he can be in Japan, be quiet over there and continue to share hate online. There is something which is going wrong at some point. So my fight, and I know it's also your fight, Lukas, is also to make things changed. Of course, there is a work that needs to be done when it comes to online platform, and we say it. But we also need to dare to change what's not working. When it comes to education, when it comes to online platforms, when it comes to our legal system.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shannon. I'm happy to have you again in the European Parliament. I'm happy about our cooperation. I can only share some facts and figures about the European activities regarding fighting anti-Semitism when it comes to the Special Envoy of the European Union, Katharina von Schnurbein, who is conducting the first ever strategy of the European Union against anti-Semitism, which had been in place also already before October 7, 2023. But policies have to follow this strategy, of course, and also the Special Envoy can only lead the process and coordinate it. But all of us, not only politics, by the way, each and every sane and sober person can join the fight against anti-Semitism. And the Austrian Parliament has been conducting for many years an anti-Semitism study, a report, a biannual report on anti-Semitism in our country, in Austria. And it's important to observe the situation, not only due to a personal feeling or daily incidents, but due to facts and figures, data and statistics. This is the, I would say, evidence-based precondition, circumstance for not only policy making, but for the daily fight against anti-Semitism. Shannon, thank you for your leadership in that field. Fighting anti-Semitism, fighting discrimination of all kinds, and as a French, always observing also the European level. Thank you for that. Thanks for visiting also the studio in the European Parliament. Best regards also from my side from this video podcast today. Best regards. Take good care. All the best.
Thank you.